maybe we aggregate the expectations,
right?
Given the fact that, and I think to a large extent, the agenda will stem from the President Commander-in-Chief, through strategic or grand strategic directives to them. By and large, I think it is not an issue of excitement, so to speak. Yes, of course, whoever that is appointed and trusted with responsibility, it calls for, kind of celebration and so on and so forth. But beyond that, these are things that are expected, because given the tradition in this country, whenever there is a change of political leadership, through the elections, right, you would like to have a team in place that you will work to, ensure that the promises you have given people, you have the drivers to achieve those, promises. So these should be looked through that prism, the appointment of new security or service chiefs, as it were. And I think the most important thing, one, is to consolidate on the gains of the past, because substantial gain has been made in terms of improvement of the security. I'm talking about when you look at terrorism and insurgency in this country. In the previous instances, most places were no-go areas, but today there is no single Boko Haram, betting any of our territory. It's a matter of fact, something unprecedented has happened. Almost 100,000 of them have laid down their arms voluntarily, and in fact, a fortnight ago, I was even in their camp in Maiduguri. So there is so much progress, and thankfully, some of the security chiefs, particularly the Chief of Defense Staff, will definitely bring into view his experience as a theater commander and previous appointment that he has held, and pick any one of them, right from the Chief of Defense Staff, the Chief of Army Staff, the Chief of Naval Staff, the Chief of Air Staff. These are people that have been well-trained, well-experienced. They had been in the system, so they have their fingertips on the various security challenges that is in the country. So, and thankfully, we are now moving from, if you look at it, most of the approaches, more or less, they were knee-jerk approaches, the security challenges, and we tend to emphasize more on the kinetic, and of course there is renewed emphasis on the non-kinetic, because some of the security challenges, they emanated from some of the issues of governance, and so there is so much as they have the enthusiasm to work, there are other factors that will have to be taken into consideration to ensure that they succeed, and that is why the issue of cooperation, collaboration, and coordination among themselves, and the various the total security architecture, that is very important.
The credentials of these new service chiefs, how optimistic are you about our readiness to combat insurgency in particular?
I'm very, very optimistic. I have just given you an example with the Chief of Defense Staff, the newly appointed Chief of Defense Staff. And in addition to that, these are people that have also been, not been just staff officers or commanders at the various levels in the course of their careers. They are also instructors. So they have a kind of feel of what training is about, what the operation. Take, for instance, if you look at the chief of the new Chief of Army Staff, his last appointment was Chief of Operations. So he has an overview of what's the operational activities of the Nigerian Army. And of course, the Nigerian Army does not operate alone. It operates jointly with other security forces. So he has a fair idea of what was going on. And of course, the former Chief of Defense in Chief of Standard and Evaluation. And even if you look at the new Chief of Defense Intelligence, so he had been in the intelligence corps of the military, and of course he is coming from the peacekeeping center. So it's something that they come with the great wealth of experience, and of course, having known them personally, you can vouch for their competency and ability to succeed.
Fantastic. I mean, and it's a good thing that you've touched on the Chief of Army Staff, because I was going to start there in terms of breaking down and assessing what experience and the background that they bring to this job. As far as you're concerned, Nigeria is in safe hands right now. You've talked about the Chief of Army Staff in the person of Major General Taoreed Lagbaja. Now let's talk about Rear Admiral Ikechukwu Ogala, Chief of Naval Staff. What does he bring to the table? What, I mean, you say you know all of them personally.
He has a very rich
him.
and intimidating CV, because
Right.
he has been in command staff and instructional appointment in the course of his almost 30-something years of career. So automatically, he's well experienced. He has been there, you know, securing the maritime environment of Nigerian society. So it's not something new. And of course, as you know, he has held several appointments. So he is well experienced and more than capable, you know, to consolidate all the gain so far been made by the Nigerian Navy. And you know that they have tremendously improved on the maritime security environment in this country, to the extent that you know, we have been you know, we have been removed from the list of those you know, no-go areas and what have you. And now they have even improved on our blue kind of, the country is even diversifying to blue economy. And apart from the fact that now they are even looking inward, they are constructing ships indigenously. So it's, the experience they are bringing on board is something that is very critical. And of course, all of them, you can pick any one of them, right from the Chief of Defense Staff up to, you know, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, and of course, even if you will even talk about the Nigerian custom, because
right.
you know, the new CG also is somebody that has been, you know, in the system to the extent that at a certain point in his career he was able to save the country almost $8.7 million, and of course he had been, apart from even his professionalism as a custom officer, he is the vice president of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, and the, you know, the vice chairman of the governing council.
Yes.
So all these things will come into bear in the course of the discharge of their duties. And more so, we are talking about collaboration, we are talking about cooperation, because they initially institutions or part of the security architectures tend to operate you know, in silos. Take for instance, of course,
allow me jump in right there. Allow me jump in there.